With me is three-time Emmy Award-winning cameraman Michael Inglesh. Mike, I've known you a long time. I always joke around when I introduce you by saying you're a three-time Emmy Award-winning cameraman. That is accurate, though, right? Do you have 3 Emmys in your possession?
Emmys, statues, Golden Girls, yes. That and 290 still get you on the subway. But many nominations. Recently, a show win that I participated in, a group effort, if you will. So yeah, Emmys are kind of like targets. You know, once you win one or two, people go after you.
The statues you have, what are they for?
The statuettes are that Art Deco girl with the globe in her hand, and they are engraved with the inscription of camera control, excellence in camera control.
Camera control, what does that mean? Define that.
Well, it's a multi-camera effort, mine being one of the 6, I believe, that was on that show. And
What show are we talking about?
A daytime talker from the 90s, hosted by a comic named Rosie O'Donnell. She was my Emmy machine.
Are all 3 Emmys from working on Rosie?
Those statues were earned pretty much back to back on that show, and then other nominations would follow from other shows, but nothing procuring that statue, which really, by the way, holds a toilet paper roll really perfectly. The 2 little wings, just like.
Yeah, I've actually heard a few friends of mine who've won Oscars or Emmys, they keep them in their bathroom.
Yeah.
That's a thing, right?
I guess. I mean, the first thing they do is they hand it to you backstage. We were, like I said, a group of 5 guys in tuxedos, and that was pretty rare at the time for me. And we're in the bathroom after the win, and we're holding our statues on, putting them on the urinal, all taking a leak. And that's a classic picture. I wish I had that picture to show you, but that was back in 97, I believe, 1997. So we're going 20 some years ago.
How early on in your career was that?
So coming upon broadcast TV was not by accident, because in truth, that's what you study to do in school. You want to get a job. You want to be on a film set or a crew of some sort, and that was my area at the time. So getting on a crew of that stature was risky just because it hadn't been done yet. Daytime was kind of an old-fashioned idea. And up until then, I was doing a lot of confrontational things like Geraldo and Donahue.
Were you there for the famous nose break?
I was there for a couple other not-so-famous things, but
what was the Al Capone's chest?
it's got, you got to have some Nazis. You got to have, women that have been cheated on, and you've got to have some dwarfs. And then once you have all 3 of those things, your show is probably pretty successful.
Working in television for 20 years, I've learned schlock sells and art fails.
Good times. Yeah, I've been part of some musical performances that I would consider, breakout performances. Or
you mean while shooting those shows?
Yeah, you're sitting around waiting for the call to rehearse, and you rehearse, and you see this group for the first time, and it's something about when you see somebody you know is going to be successful. And it doesn't really matter anymore because.
And there's something about seeing somebody perform live. Was it live or was it like to?
Oh no, we're always. Very rarely.
They were actually playing though.
Yeah, very rarely do
lip-sync.
our live programs and our concerts that I participate in sing to track. Although now, backing tracks and rhythm tracks and other things, musicians that aren't their tracks.
Yes,
that happens.
It's
a lot.
whole new world, that's for sure.
That happens a lot.
I'm sure back in '97 it was a little bit different. It's funny you say that, talking about the seeing a musical artist or act kind of like maybe in their early career. A lot of like musical artists would go on shows like that to kind of get out there, and then you look back and you're like, oh wow, that was their first performance. I remember shortly after the 90s, in the early 2000s, I was working as a bouncer and a security guard for a lot of music venues here in the city while I was going to film school. And it was always fun to see, in a similar way, like maybe a new artist who then you see them elevate their career years later. But then there's something to be said about seeing a live performance that maybe you wouldn't see? Like, right, I'm sure you saw a lot of artists that you
That I
wouldn't
would
have bought
never have
tickets
paid a
for.
ticket for.
Same when I used to work security, same thing. You do every show that you get hired for.
Right.
So you really start to learn to have a respect for some artists. You're like, God, I can't believe that person was really good.
Completely different genre that you are amazed to see 20 or 15 or 10,000 people show, whatever your house was. You know, I don't know how big you were bouncing at, but when you see a packed room and everyone knows the words and it's like your first time seeing it and it's good, all those things happening, you're like, wow, this is probably pretty important.
When I was working security, I saw Bruce Springsteen. I mean, like backstage with them, right up front with them, working for them. Green Day was my first show that I ever worked when I was in college. Uh,
Were they
Bob
touring?
Dylan.
What were they touring? Were they touring American Idiot? 'Cause you're a
Yeah.
little-
Yep. That they were. What was funny with that is, so I was interning at Conan O'Brien, working security at night as 2 jobs, and so in the day I ran into Green Day at Conan, and they performed, and then at night they were at the Hammerstein on 34th Street, and I saw them twice, and they were like, "Dude, what are you following us?" And I'm like, "This is my second job," and they're like, "How many jobs do you have?"
So funny coincidence here. You were at 30 Rock, and that's where Rosie was taped. And that tour, they also rehearsed and performed on a little show called SNL. So they did Conan during the week, then they did SNL for Saturday. Rehearsals for music and SNL are Thursdays. We were done taping Rosie at 10:30 in the morning. Music rehearsals started at 11. That's where I found myself almost every Thursday, sitting down, watching the bands rehearse.
Yeah.
It's the only time I was able to get into the SNL stage because it's a hard place to.
Oh yeah, I know. When I was at NBC, I got into the SNL stage, I think once. It was a hard thing to do.
So picture this: Green Day's playing. I don't know what it was. American Idiot, very loud, very like they meant it. And there's 4 or 5 folding chairs right up front with some semi-important people listening. I'm sure the producers, whatever. Maybe they're people. And I've kind of skulked in like I usually do in the back row, like in the back of the room, not even in a chair, just kind of in the back, sitting on a box or something. I don't know. And there's a lot of activity coming in because as the music's playing, the whole floor can feel it. That 8H just they blew the doors off of 8H and people were coming in. And this fella's in a bathrobe and looked like Jesus. And he's standing next to me and he's kind of tapping his toe. He's got sunglasses on. He's tapping his toe, big Jesus beard. And I turn around and they're, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, or whatever. And everybody starts clapping that, like 10-person clap. And the guy that's in the bathrobe is Will Ferrell, dressed for set or something for another sketch. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I just watched Green Day with Will Ferrell.
Yeah, in a bathrobe. Yeah, it's funny you say that. As I look back at my career as well, like you look at these moments, and I guess they become everyday and normal to us. But when you have like an outsider perspective, you're like, this is not a normal life. Like same thing. I at one point, I remember going to speak in some public schools, like a tour to where they bring in directors and filmmakers. And I remember doing that with Peter Green from The Mask and from The Usual Suspects. I don't know if you know him as an actor, but like he's known for being like living on the edge and kind of having a lot of demons. And so I'm standing here with Peter Green, also from Pulp Fiction, Zed. And so I'm like, I look back and I'm like,
Zed's dead.
I'm looking around. You're talking to, you know, young teenagers in high school about what it's like to work in film and television with Zed from fucking Pulp Fiction. And you just kind of go, what a weird, interesting life. And I know that you've had one and you have one. In my intro, I labeled it as, a series where I interview friends, colleagues, and clients. You've been all three. Talk a little bit about that, like how
you forgot intimate friends.
True. Well, let's not tell too
So
much.
friends,
Got to keep secrets,
clients,
some secrets,
and tenant.
Absolutely, yes. So let's talk a little bit about like how we know each other. Do you remember how we met? And
So the abbreviated, cleaned up version. Actually, it was all clean. It was all on the up and up. You had an employee here, or a colleague that was sound mixing, and he too was moonlighting on jobs, and he happened to be on my job for a regular basis. And he said, I have a place downtown that I can mix for you. At the time, I needed some music mixing for a documentary I was working on. and came down here and kind of blew my mind with, the ease in which everything was happening, and got introduced to you, and from there, the film basically got ready for prime time. We prepared it for the festival circuit, outputted it, and inputted it, and whatever you do to make it conformed. I think it was called conforming.
Yeah, you had a mixed media documentary,
Very mixed
all
media.
different frame rates, different
Oh my
resolutions. I
God.
remember we
Oh my God.
helped
Never again.
transcode and conform all that. And
Shoot it all on an iPhone from now on.
did your sound. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Now the irony is like these days, that process is much simplified.
The ad itself, the iPhone ad, is literally shot by the phone and showing guys shooting with the phone. Now, is it false advertising? Perhaps.
Mike is a longtime camera operator, director, producer, editor, right? What would you describe yourself as? What title would you give yourself? Jack of all trades.
I like to tell stories. I like to take long walks. I like to put things off until tomorrow, and then I do everything at once.
What's the current show you're on, and what do you do there?
So I work on a daytime talker. It's not unlike, but like everything else I've ever worked on, where there's 6 segments, a couple of guests, maybe a musical performance, and most likely a cooking segment.
And what's your role?
We were just talking about something earlier. As time goes on, you remember some of the fun stuff, like unusual things with the bathrobe and Will Ferrell, or in the elevator with Conan O'Brien.
In the elevator, right? I'm sure when you were at NBC, were you?
So when I got on
I had
there
some
with
elevator moments. You were on with Conan once?
just me and him.
Yeah.
And of course, he had to say something like, "You're too tall, shrink," is what he said.
Really?
So I'm about 6'6". I think he's about 6'5". So
Oh, you got him.
with a little bit of adjustment and spreading of the legs, I came down a little bit. And he goes, "That's better." And then he went up, off on his floor.
Yeah, Conan's a good guy. I interned there. That was like my first foray into the film and television world, which then led to some jobs. I ended up working for Ahmad Rashad's sports desk on the weekends. There were some others.
But Conan's still very strong in this.
Yes, he
in
has
this
a
world.
good podcast. I watch his podcast and I see a lot of the people that worked there when I was interning, and I even see some old interns who ended up staying there as I left. I left to go work on. I went to go work on The Apprentice with Mr. Donald back then. But it's funny you mentioned the elevator trips. Yes, when you're at NBC, you find yourself on an elevator with some interesting people. I remember being on an elevator with Adam Sandler alone. I, unlike you, did not speak to him. We just made awkward eye contact. And it was a little strange because he had a big-ass black eye. So I'm like, oh, somebody's been out having a good time.
Probably
or doing something the night before. And then I remember once I was on an elevator, not at NBC, but I was on an elevator with Tim Robbins alone once. And we kind of just
How about the list of famous people I've peed next to?
Yes, I'm sure
I've got a nice list there.
Oh, that's funny you mentioned that. God, I was in a bathroom when I worked at Conan. I tried to be as professional, even though I was an intern and I was, when I say worked, I'm going there for college credit as a trade-off. I remember I was always trying to act professional for the most part and not be like a kid, even though I was a kid. With the celebrities, right? So I would try to stay away, try to be professional, but there was one celebrity who came on and I'm like, I want to see him up close, and I want to see him on set. And it was Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman.
Okay.
And I remember another buddy of mine who was there named Dave. We're like, we got to go see if we can just see Paul Rubens. And so we go down. I can't remember what floor the stage was on for Conan, but we go down and we're looking for him. Was it floor 5? We're looking for him. And he's like, nowhere to be found. And we're like, kind of just roaming the halls, looking on the set, behind the curtain and all that stuff. No, he's not there. We're trying to find excuses to walk around to not be,
because showtime there was like 5. So what time is it, like 3 or 4 in the afternoon?
Yes.
Okay.
This is in the afternoon. And so then we're like, well, we tried. Well, who the hell knows where he went? We go into the bathroom, both take a leak. We're washing our hands. Who comes out of the stall? But Mr. Paul Rubens. And we're both bookending him at the sink.
Perfect.
Washing our hands. And we both look over and we're like, no fucking way. He's like literally, right here. And it is right before we're about to roll. And I remember them being like, looking for him, like Mr. Rubens,
Right.
like, on set, or report to the stage.
Right.
And he kind of, washes his hands real quick. and he's about to,
Mm,
he's scurrying
that's
out
good.
to go tape the interview with Conan. And I just remember he on his foot and leg, he's got toilet paper wrapped around it. And so we had the moment where both my friend and I were like, Mr. Rubin, stop. And we stopped him mid out the door into the hallway. And we're like, your foot. And so he was like, oh, he unraveled the toilet paper and then ran out there. He was like, thanks so much. And went and did his
What was
interview.
he doing in there that he got all tied up?
He was using the restroom. I don't know. Maybe he was going to go appear as the mummy. But no, he was wrapped in toilet paper on the foot. And,
Well, at least he washed his hands, because I have a list also of celebrities that don't wash their hands because they don't want to interact with the slags who are washing their hands. They just come out of the stall, maybe touch the faucet, make a noise, and then walk out. There's no washing of the hands. Peeing in the men's room is a moment on these shows where, unless they have their own restroom, which is a luxury, and the show I work on doesn't have restrooms in the green room. So I've woken Harrison Ford up off of the crew couch saying, Harrison, you've got, a few minutes to dust off. You want some coffee? And he kind of got off this IKEA couch, kind of stuck to the fake leather with his drool. He gets up. Yeah. So, come here, follow me. I walk down the hallway, and we crew members keep a bunch of coffee cups in the fire extinguisher door because the coffee cups always run out. And when you want a coffee, you want to get a cup. And
it's an emergency.
So it's an emergency. So I open up the thing. He's like looking like I'm going to club him with the fire extinguisher. And no, there's coffee. I say, Han Solo, here's a Solo cup. And he goes,
yeah, they've heard it all.
And he walked away. But I mean, funny stuff where
those moments, right? And it's hard to know how to interact with a celebrity sometimes when you work with them. Like I've crossed paths with them. I've been on sets with them. You got to kind of, like anything, you got to read the room. It's like being in a bar and you're talking to like a stranger, right? You got to kind of read their body language and energy.
And make no mistake, they've just gone through a gauntlet outside, signing autographs or taking pictures. They're going to go through the gauntlet, leaving the place. They probably got 3 more appointments that day where they're going to do the same thing. So least distractions are better. But when you can kind of come up with something gold, like, Strahan was in the men's room next to me. I mean, this toilet has a partition, but, we're right next to each other. And I said, damn, that water's cold. And Strahan turns to me, skipping a beat. He goes, in deep. So, I mean, I'm kind of in that place where I don't care anymore. I'll say shit like that just because.
The older you get, the less you care.
There's
you become a kind of a crusty veteran, and it's a true thing. And you just.
They appreciate it. Sometimes the appreciation, like I don't know how much Harrison Ford cared about my Han Solo joke, but he was so tired, man. He literally, like, imagine that couch behind you and people are running around and 5 minutes there, 10 minutes just there, crashed, and no one's talking to him. And I'm like, this man, he's got to get off the couch soon. Get him some coffee. Look, he's been drinking all night. But
What was your first, now working, I know you've worked on a lot of daytime shows. We always talk about them here. We have great stories about them. Do you remember the first celebrity that you framed up on a shot and what that was like? Were you nervous? How old were you and who was it?
We were on a kind of a serious talker. And in the 90s, me and my 5 other personalities. And I was assigned to teleprompter on this job, and it was the Charlie Rose show way back in the day when Charlie was considered, gold and handsome and suave, and none of the bad things had come out yet. But everybody warned me when I started the job there, just be careful, this guy, he's got a crusty paw.
Isn't that amazing?
And I said, a crusty paw? He's just like, you just watch out for his crusty paw. I'm like, fine.
Isn't that amazing when you get a job on a show and there's a celebrity involved and you get kind of warned of like, hey, keep an eye out. Anytime I worked on one, it definitely came to fruition. We're like, years later, you're like, oh, yep, you're going to jail.
Or just simple little things like, hey, give me a smoke. Racy doesn't know I smoke. Or, do you have some weed? I'd really like to get high right now. That kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, fine. But, what were we talking about?
Talking about the first celebrity you
So on this show, which I had I'm from the Midwest by way of Chicago and Detroit. So I've got this job. where I have to take the script, paper script, with words on it that are oversized, and have the ability to cut words out with a scissors and tape and fix those words if the script changes. And it's really just what we're doing now. It's like, hi, welcome to the show. My name is Matt. Today's guest is Mike Inglesh. He's a cameraman of many talents. Please welcome Mike Inglesh. That might have been on my script. But at the last minute, they might have said, well, we don't want to say many talents. We want to say he's a real jack of all trades. And here's the, so you're fixing this thing like construction paper, and then it's on a conveyor belt. It's very old school. It's on a conveyor belt being shot by a little black and white CCT, closed circuit camera. And that was being reflected on the teleprompter screen. That was teleprompter. And you had these two little weights like on either end of the conveyor belt that kept the paper in place. But if you weren't paying attention and the weights went off the conveyor belt, they pulled the whole script off. So, of course, I had that experience right off the bat on the show, and all I wanted to do was shoot camera. So they're like, well, you know what? Tonight's your lucky night. You're going to get to shoot camera. Prompter's not your thing. I get it.
Oh, did you just fail enough at prompter that they took you off that job?
Perhaps.
That's one way to move up. Right, reward failure. How many times have you seen that in our industry?
Well, I had a rabbi there, so I kind of do no wrong, and everybody kind of knew it. It was back in the day, too, where unions were very protective of their positions, and here's some new kid that just walked in off the streets from Chicago, and he wants to do camera. So I think, to answer your question finally, who was the celebrity on that show that I had to call home? Oh, by the way, there were no cell phones. So one of the greatest part of having a job in TV is you had unlimited phone calls. You could call Europe all day long and just talk to Europe because the Watts line, they call it, I don't know,
That's amazing. Yeah.
So I called back home and I said, you never believe who I have on the show. And they said, who? And I said, Spike Lee and Philip Johnson. And my friend goes, well, I know who Spike Lee is, but who the hell's Philip Johnson? I said, oh, forget it. It's Charlie Rose. You might see it on Channel 11 in Chicago. WNET public television was at the time in New York being done out of the Hudson Hotel at West 57th. And the ballroom that we were shooting in was the former home of Night of 1,000 Stars, or one of these, black and white golden era variety shows. It wasn't Ed Sullivan, but it was like a Night of 1,000 Stars or some shit. And in that hotel, the Hudson Hotel, right downstairs was an Irish pub called Desmond's. I think it's called Kennedy's now or whatever. We would call that Studio D because it was Desmond's, right? And I found myself in Studio D just the other day with an old friend from that crew, and that's gone on 32 years ago. And some of the bartenders are still there. I couldn't believe it. And they're really old men now, but they're still there. So one of the reasons they hired me that year was because of the Democratic National Convention of 1992 with Mr. Young Bill Clinton dancing to the Fleetwood Mac. And because half of the crew at PBS was down the street at Madison Square, they needed people like me who'd never shot camera before to work on the Charlie Rose show. So that's how I got my start at NET, was because of the demand of crew.
You bring up an interesting point, because if you look at that situation, they needed to hire a cameraman. Instead of like looking outside to bring somebody in, they're like, hey, we already have this guy. He kind of sees how we operate. They haven't seen you operate a camera there, but they kind of entrusted, like, you could do it. You've seen it enough. And so one of the things I spoke about in the past here is about, like, for young people trying to get jobs, and sometimes they send in a resume and they go, oh, I didn't hear anything back. You have to understand the infrastructure of a show and a network. A lot of times something like that will happen. They'll give an opportunity to somebody who maybe like has not gotten the qualifications yet, but you're still working in that environment because they already know you as a person, that you kind of know the flow of the show.
True.
And so I try to tell people, like, not to get discouraged when they don't hear back from like a resume submission, because things like that happen, where like opportunities sometimes are given within. It doesn't mean it's like it doesn't mean anything, like, if you haven't heard back. Like, sometimes those things happen.
Every single job I've ever worked on, and I'm going to say every single job, was from reference of word of mouth or previous work experience. Oh, we worked with you at Elvis Costello, and we wanted to get some of the same guys together that were on that show. Are you available? somebody could have sent thousands of resumes in for that job, and they're never going to look at those.
Yeah.
So
It's
you're right.
true. Once you get that one in the door, like, I can look back to my career as well, and it really does all start with my internship at Conan O'Brien, which led to my first paid job, which led to me networking to people who left that job, then they call me up, and then you kinda just elevate, the position you're hired for in the same regard. You're in the same environment, you kinda see how things work, people trust you, people like you. It's a lot of networking, and it's a lot
And
of
it could
who you
work
know.
against you. If you've got an abrasive personality like I do, sometimes, they look for ways to get
You
rid
get
of you.
you get blacklisted. I've definitely been blacklisted, from
I
a
hate to
few
call it a
places.
blacklist, but I just call it the shit list. I mean, it's like, and the things that get you on the shit list, I've learned over time, are information, tidbits. Yeah, I've got 3 girlfriends and a Ferrari. Don't tell these people that. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, I'm behind on my car payments and my wife's going to leave me soon and I just found out I have dick cancer. Then you're going to get a job tomorrow. They'll keep hiring you because you're the poor son of a bitch that needs help. But if you start walking around the set going, yeah, I love this place. It's great. It's helping me pay for my swimming pool in my second house. Shut the fuck up. 'Cause there's 3 or 4 guys there standing around going, he doesn't need a swimming pool. He's a jackass. We're going to set him up, get rid of
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, there's a lot of jealousy and animosity and evil eye that goes on in the industry.
Evil eye. So
What age did you decide that you wanted to work in the arts, and was it film and television right off the bat, or did you wanna work in some other artistic field, and then how did you end up here?
So where I grew up was interesting. I was born in the Detroit metro area at a time when the 60s were, to say the least, turbulent. Political leaders were getting shot, murdered. Presidents were getting shot, murdered. And we had a little bit of a war skirmish going on. So a lot of youth was protesting. And in the typical way of protesting, some of them used fire and pretty much burnt most of the neighborhood down. So we moved out of downtown Detroit quickly. As a matter of fact, there's a Super 8 movie. My grandmother made a lot of Super 8 movies, and she might have been the inspiration for my career, but I could definitely say she was an inspiration for my career. But she made this movie of us packing up my grandpa's 1950s pickup truck with whatever, some bed frames, boxes, and lamps and shit. And I'm just running around like some little, 4-year-old would with glee and excitement that, hey, we're moving. Today we're moving. Yesterday we weren't moving, but today we're moving. And that was the day we got the hell out of there and set up shop in the suburbs, not far from where Mr. Eminem grew up, which wasn't bad, by the way. Look it up. 8 Mile's not a bad place. Some of the nice neighborhoods are along 8 Mile. It just depends on how far you go out. Lived there until I was like 8, and again moved because of parents got a job somewhere else in Chicago. And in Chicago, I, as an only child, did a lot of drawing and stamp collecting, whatever, butterfly collecting, exploring, building forts with the neighborhood kids because I didn't have any brothers or sisters. So I was one of those guys that was out a lot, creating mischief and havoc with whatever we could find. We would break into construction sites and find some odd lumber and build a fort, for instance. Who didn't do that, right? Who didn't try and build a treehouse with no plans and 5 nails and a hammer and their buddies? But so mucking around that small part of Chicago, that small area, I probably I found painting and drawing first, and excelled in that. Graphic arts was kind of on the horizon, maybe lunch boxes or cereal boxes or whatever, advertising art is what they called it back then. And so I'm standing in line to register for school in Chicago at a trade school, which is now one of the top film schools and schools for the arts, Columbia College Chicago. and I'm standing in line, 18 years old. I'm gonna take, graphics 1 and airbrush 2 and, figure drawing 3, and then I look over at this other line, this other cast of characters, and they looked a lot more interesting than me, and they were online for film and video. I'm like, "You know what? On the spur of the moment, let me just sign up for a bunch of film and video stuff." I like to make Super 8 movies. I had a film class in high school. It was one of my favorite classes. So, again, it was another discipline in creativity above and beyond art directing a cheap fort in a elm tree to a performance art in the park to the coolest acid tripping album cover you ever saw. It's all those three things. You could do that, you could do this, you could do that. So I figured I could apply all the creative disciplines into film. You could film somebody painting. You could film somebody making a sculpture. You could film. Look at your phone now. Half the time I'm watching people make shit out of crates and pallets because it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it is what I've always said is why I think it's the best art form and the worst art form is that it is complex and there's a lot of moving parts to where, when you're a painter, and I started out as a traditional artist as well, you can go alone to a canvas and paint something and create something. And there is something nice about the solitude of that. But like with a film, when you're really doing it right, you need a large ensemble of crew, of cast, and you have so much of elements of other art mediums that find its way into a film. Wardrobe, color, production design,
Weather.
sets, everything, right? It is a weird embodiment of so many things and it touches so many things. But like when I was starting out as well, I started out as a storyboard artist, as a cartoonist. I could draw as well, and you just find your way into those different departments. It's such a big machine, and that's another kind of misnomer about the industry is that people think it is a difficult industry, but I think people that are not in it go like, well, what are you going to do? Be a director, a producer, a writer? Those big broad stroke jobs are the ones that we hear most about. But when you really start to dissect the industry, there's a lot more that you can work. There's a lot more opportunity for someone to work within it. You just maybe don't hear about it so much in terms
Oh,
of
just
production.
watch the credits on any kind of
That's
production. You blow your mind.
right. There's a reason why they're so long. In that there's many jobs. They might not be as featured or as glorified as some of the premiere titles that you see. But yeah, when you watch a big movie and you see those credits roll, you see just how many people had their hands in it. So talk about your early career and your first entry into it. I know you talked about the teleprompting job for Charlie Rose, right? That was kind of like your first gig. How did you get the job?
I had a family member at NET, a friend of the family, we called her Auntie, that I just decided to have lunch with on a long weekend trip I had taken here with a good friend of mine. I said, I'm going to go see my auntie at WNET.
What does she do there?
She was a producer, writer. She was head of the Writers Guild East for many years. So she was a wordsmith. She was all about copy, all about punctuation, all about, you know, headlines. And so she wrote the news for PBS. And when I say the news, it was those little things you see on the hour and a half hour, 2-line headline news things. And so she did that for many years. And I had a lot of pull. And she said at lunch, if you feel like sticking around this summer, we could hook you up with the summer relief, the vacation relief, because a lot of people are down at DNC. A lot of people are at the General Assembly. We're strapped for guys. And if you want to do something and get paid $300 a day, 5 days a week, I said, $1,500 a week, 1990s, you could rent
That's
the
not bad.
best apartment in the city here for like $1,500. Now, and that same apartment I looked up the other day on Zillow is for sale for $1,200,000, and it's a little bit bigger than this room we're in now.
Did you finish with a degree and what was it in?
Yeah, so Columbia College Chicago is a fully accredited college. You take 4 years, you get your BA. You could take additional years and get your master's. Um, if you look at their roster list in the last 30 years, a lot of people in this business, writers, composers, directors, DPs, actors, poets, dancers, photographers, all and I know your school as well has this incredible roster of, wow, that's where they went to school? Not Columbia, not NYU, not Stanford, and I know SVA has a much higher regard now, but in the early '80s, probably
I don't even know if it existed.
it it was a pretty new school. What I remember best about it, and the new school was the other one that you could go
Yeah.
to. So it was new school, SVA, and that was pretty much it here in New York for film schools, unless you had one of these tech,
NYU?
Well, yeah, if you couldn't get into NYU
Yeah.
or Columbia.
See, that's amazing that you say that because I remember, early 2000s, that was what everyone said. If you're not going to NYU, you go to SVA. It was like the second choice.
Well, it's
Or
ironic
if you
that,
didn't have the money. If
right?
you didn't have the money,
It doesn't matter
we
if
can
you have.
also offer you what's behind this curtain.
No, it's not what you have at your disposal; it's how you use it. I'm sure at the time we didn't even have we had nonlinear editing in the '80s.
Oh yeah, would you
There
have a
was no.
Steinbeck?
There was yeah, that
Yeah.
roll up, crank up cameras.
But it's good. I think it's good. I think I was lucky to kind of come up in the era that I did because learning those traditional methods and seeing how the technology has changed, I think has made me a better artist. Like people don't understand now, and I know I sound like an old person complaining about how things are, but the the ease of things now, I think hurts the growth and development of an artist. I mean, see it specifically with editing. People just go, oh, you just throw it in the thing, everything fixes itself. They really don't even understand like what is a frame rate, what is a frame size, what is the resolution, what is the what's 16:9, what's a matte, what's a letterbox. They don't really know these things because you kind of just gloss over it and throw everything in and expect the computer to fix everything for you. But back then, I mean, I remember when I was in film school, splicing actual film and syncing it to sound. I was doing a video the other day about what is a slate. People don't really know what a slate is and why it's even there anymore. And I still think a slate should be used. But if I didn't have that experience, you know, at the time I did.
We were lucky. You're lucky, and I was lucky, and but I think this new generation who doesn't, unless they go seek out that antiquated kind of educational skill set that is required to understand a process. I mean, I admire that about you. You pretty much built everything around this place. Forget about making great movies. You know how to hang a door. And what young person today would even attempt to do that? They would go on YouTube University, try and find out the mechanics of it maybe, and then, I don't know, would they succeed?
It goes back to the idea of I've always viewed this as a trade, and I think to operate well in a trade, you have to have pride in your work. And I think just across the board, whether it's the film and television industry or anything else, nobody has pride in their work anymore because you just see the lack of care put into it. Everything is about being quick, cheap, and then from a consumer standpoint, it's expensive and overly expensive. So I think, we've lost a little bit of that pride in your work. And it's funny, like talking about how do you get jobs. I've always, looked at it as, yes, it's word of mouth, but you have to do a good job. Like as an editor, I know for sure my career took off because I was so meticulous in how I cut and I cared so much. I didn't care if I was cutting a garbage commercial, a corporate video, or, a high-end film. I treated them with the same respect. And one job has always led to another. Let me ask you, early on in your career path, who were your artistic influences in your life, looking back?
Oh, from a visual standpoint, some of the masters, I guess, Monet, Lichtenstein,
Fine artists.
Gerhard Richter. I like contemporary modern art, but I also like some of the impressionists. Like,
But fine, we're talking about obviously fine art.
oh yeah,
but that influenced
that would be the
you
influence. Oh yeah,
as a filmmaker.
oh
And
yeah.
that's it. See, that's again, I think that makes a more interesting film and television professional with having this well-rounded scope. I think everyone sees the glitz of film and TV, And like I remember coming up, again, it's before my time, but like, you would know, like I knew who John Wayne was and who Errol Flynn were as actors and performers, even though they're before my time. But now what's interesting as you look at young people, and they've moved a little bit away from actors and celebrities to influencers. People now, like, they don't know who Brad Pitt is, and he's still incredibly relevant. But that's an interesting thing to
Oh,
not
absolutely.
have
I
those
say that all the time, Matt.
influences,
I say that all the time. That unless, yeah,
to not pull from those things, or to not know who Basquiat is, or it doesn't. And people nowadays, the way they look at things, they're kind of like, well, he's a street artist. How would that apply to me as a filmmaker? And you should be pulling from all of those things. At the end of the day, the film is a frame, and it's a frame of composition that you're putting something into. No
absolutely.
different than a work of fine art, right? And I think, like, what I love about fine art, when you look at a painting on a wall, it's one frame of a film essentially that you are using to interpret what did the artist mean, what did he want to convey to you. And so if you take that philosophy of what goes into one single frame of a painting and put that into a film, it's really no different. But no one really seems to have that approach anymore.
Some of these French Renaissance paintings that are 10, 20 feet high or 15 feet wide by 10 feet high, there's so much detail going on in the picture. The realism, and then the satire and the political commentary, and maybe the artist snuck something in there of his own political agenda. But what I enjoy is reading the description by the curator or the museum. This is, I don't know, Matt at a podcast. But in the painting, you see Matt's hand grasping the microphone in a way that looks like he's ready to lance his speaker with it. He wants to use it as a weapon. They describe the painting, the frame, if you will, as if it's a whole story.
Yeah.
Like there was an ending, there was some backstory. What's going to happen? Is this guy going to stab his wife because he caught her cheating? You do a great show called
I like
Art
how
Atta-
the stabbing reference also is applicable to the cheating physical.
Well, I watched something yesterday where the satire was they were making fun of a chef competition show. And the way they always do the end, apparently, I've seen them a couple times. And so that's why this sketch was so spot on. Chef, how did you like my macaroni and cheese? Here it is. The chef starts out by saying, well, I wasn't going to say this, but, and then the music's very dour and down. But if this was to be served in a prison, it would be the greatest food ever for our prisoners.
Yes, and it goes up and down.
Yeah,
Yes,
this
yes.
goes up and down.
Insult, compliment, insult, compliment, insult.
And at the button of the sketch is, the host is so upset with this food and this guy and he's gonna do with his career that he comes up and he just stabs him.
Is that Key and Peele?
Yeah, and he goes,
right?
thank you, chef. Thank you.
Yes, the truth to the comedy of it.
We were watching a lot of Key and Peele last night, and I said, when you think about almost every one of these sketches, when you break them, make them into a little longer of a story idea, they're all his movies. They're about a black guy who's of black and white heritage worried about his dick size. I mean, that was the funniest fuck sketch I ever saw. I was like, what's wrong with you? Well, I'm white down there. What do you mean?
Yeah, I think the secret to good comedy is always like having some truth to it.
Or tragedy and some,
So when going back to film school, you graduate film school, what year is that?
Okay, we're going to go to the way back, 1985.
So do you remember 1985? Did you have a clear plan after school how to break into the industry? I know you said an opportunity was presented to you through a relative.
Oh, that's
led
much
you to
later. It's like 5-6 years later.
But so in that in between, then were you looking for work? Did any internships?
So what did I did?
Like, what were you doing in that space?
I was kind of doing what you were doing at that age, taking internships, working as the assistant to the assistant art director. Or
this
whatever.
is in
Chicago.
Detroit or Chicago?
Yes,
Chicago.
I did a lot of feature work on crews, and it got really tiring. I felt like they were abusing me. And back then, I mean, again, $175 a day seems like some money to a young person. It seems like some money. It's not a lot of money when you're working 12 hours.
No.
Or you're like, wow, I almost worked for basically $8 an hour today.
Yeah, you run yourself into the ground. When I was just starting out, I would work 15, 16 hours a day. Sometimes, when I was doing my own thing for nothing, just to build a resume and a work history.
Right.
So yeah, you're grinding to the
So
bone.
I'm grinding like that. And my wife, who's an attorney by trade, she's a lawyer, is on her way into her first couple of jobs. So she's watching, what I'm doing, which is polar opposite to showing up to an office.
Yeah,
and
she has a real.
She had real.
She made better decisions.
She made better decisions. But so she's like, go ahead, take your trip to Chicago. I mean, to New York with your friend, because you're clearly unhappy here. Just go take a trip. And so after several years of bouncing around on shows, they were features, mostly feature work and commercials. We did
feature film.
Yeah, feature films and a lot of commercials.
What kind of movies? Like what titles?
The last one I quit was The Public Eye, starring Joe Pesci and Barbara Hershey.
I remember that film.
It was directed by a young fella who had one other successful film under his belt. And so this was his sophomore project. He was going to, do this period piece that took place exclusively in New York, exclusively about a photographer who was very famous, but they couldn't use his photos or say his name. So they had to change the name of the photographer and not use the real photos. You know who Ouija was? Arthur Fellig? He was, yeah. So the story is about Ouija. And the reason I quit was they wanted me to find, it was kind of like The Godfather, where they're asking you at the last minute of the day, like 10:30 at night, you're going home. We need a side of beef. We need a side of beef for tomorrow. Go down to the stockyards. There's probably some, I don't know what the scam was.
You were what, an intern or a PA?
PA, assistant, art department assistant, art department.
And so how did you land that job? Did you
Well, this was all the in real life shit we had to do back then. You had to go to production offices. You had to, my trick was always bring food. Pretend like you're bringing somebody something. So now you're through the door. You're like, oh, you brought rugula? You got a pizza?
Just without
always use the food.
Without a name, just like, who is it being delivered to?
Well, to your point, I would have already sent them that resume. And resumes back then were done on typewriters.
Yeah. We'd just send it in the mail.
And then we send them in the mail or whatever.
In person?
So my gag with that was I'd always, at the time, David Letterman was kind of the one and only snarky talk show at night. There was Carson and there was Letterman.
Yeah. I was both huge fans of both.
Of course, who doesn't love a little Art Fern tea time movies? But with Letterman, he had this top 10 list, and the writers were always very clever with the top 10 list. I always thought the top 10 list was funny as shit. So instead of a resume, I would put a top 10 list of why I needed a job on your movie. And usually the number one, I'm trying to think of some of them, sitting around in my pajamas eating cereal out of the box is getting a little stale, or, blah, blah, blah. And then the number one reason I need to be hired for your show is whatever. But at the bottom, I would put a quarter and tape it to the bottom. I said, here's a quarter, free call me back. And if you don't want to call me, use it for your laundry. So this particular person, I used this letter on, I go to the office and she's like, you're that guy with the quarter? I didn't have a pizza or anything. I didn't have any arugula. I just showed up. I'm like, yeah, I'm here to start
my quarter back.
She's like, you're the guy with the quarter. Holy shit. And then she says, okay, are you ready to work? Are you willing? I'm totally ready to work. Have you ever done audio? I was like,
I love that. Have you ever done audio? It's not, do you want to be a PA or an intern? Here, let us give you this high level, incredibly important, massively, technically.
It sounded important. It sounded important. The story I'm telling now is the day I got the job at Montel Williams, the Montel Williams show, which was a very close cousin to Geraldo and Phil. And
I remember Montel. He always had psychic Sylvia Brown on.
Oh, he was about the psychic shit. He really is.
So
I'm at this woman's desk, and I'm like,
quarter story.
Yeah, the quarter story. I'm like, lady, I just thought it was funny. She goes, funny? I told the whole office about this thing. Do you do audio? And I said, well, yeah,
Now, was that a lie?
because I had just
Fake it till you make it?
well, I had caved my teleprompting career, burnt that career down and turned it into a camera job. But all the while, I was working around the audio guys. I knew what the job she wanted me to do was to put a little alligator clip on your lapel, kind of dust you off,
So
and
like
make you a greeter. It's what it really is. It's just a greeter. Hi, welcome to the show. I'm going to put a mic on you. Is that okay?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. Where do you want to put it? And then you'd like fuck around with their lapels. That was the job. She goes, you could do audio,
So
right?
like a third audio
She goes, you
assistant.
could, yeah,
Like an
you could do,
A3, right?
she's
They call you
literally
like an
looking,
A3.
she's telling me to lie. She goes, you do audio, right?
Right.
You can do it, right? I'm like,
yeah.
yeah. And so the second question she looks me up and down, tall, good looking woman. I know her to this day, married with kids, but she was single back then. And so I think we're flirting a little bit. I'm kind of like, yeah, I can do it. Want me to start tomorrow? And she's like, yeah, I have one more question. She goes, I have one more question. Are you gay? And I said, that shit's got to follow me every time.
Well, you're also
you suck one dick and you think you're gay. No, I said,
but,
no.
But
I said
also,
to her,
are you wondering, does my answer
affect my, well, I told her, I said, no.
job?
I said, no, I'm not gay. I'm not gay. And she said, good, you're hired.
Really?
And I said,
good, you're hired.
Good. No, she says, no, because back then you didn't have to cover up your political correctness. She said, good, you're hired. You know why? And I said, why? Montel Williams doesn't want any homosexuals miking him. He's homophobic. And the last girl we had is suing us for sexual harassment. So we have to hire a guy. And Montel says, hire me a guy, but make sure he's not a punch in the pants. I want a straight guy. So there you go. Lighten the loafers, as my mother used to say.
It's amazing that you say that because, like, what year is this?
96, 10 years after college.
The fucking industry, and I don't know, I can't imagine other fields are like this, but maybe they are. But just the level of just bizarreness and weirdness and dysfunction. I was just talking to someone the other day about work and the things I've been asked to do.
Right.
And this is recent. In the last decade, we're in 2025. So in the last decade, I would be up for jobs and someone would call me kind of on the down low from the production and be like, listen, are you black? Are you Jewish? And I'm like, I'm clearly not an African-American man, but they'd be like, you're going to have to say you are to get the job. I'm like, what?
So you'll never be in a room with somebody to know?
I don't know. But like, there's been times where it was basically said to me, say this to get the job. So when, you're telling your story of like being asked these questions,
right.
Sometimes, I'm still as recent as 10 years ago, I'm being asked similar things.
Right.
And you kind of just don't know. At the end of the day, I'm like, can you just hire me if I'm good at my job?
Right.
But I've been asked to lie and fudge things and move things, and I don't even ask why, and it makes me uncomfortable. And I'm like, okay, if you want to go tell someone whatever you want to tell them, I am. I have the confidence that I'm going to be able to do the job well, but I've always just found that to be incredibly strange.
And it's an era, like some of these older stars still can't catch themselves. Sometimes off camera, you'll hear some shit.
I talk a little bit about the need to live in a city like New York or LA if you want to work in film and TV. And part of that is you can get your next job off the street, on a train, in a bar. So is that kind of part of your just like personality in general, or is that your approach to kind of working in this field and living in this space that, to always kind of keep any opportunity open that like any conversation could lead to a job or an opportunity? Is that kind of how you look at it?
Yeah. I mean, you're right about the hanging out at the right place at the right time. And that was also a trick. When you saw where the studio was or where the production company was set up for set construction, or where the gang's going to go after work, where are they going to go?
Yes.
Is it the barbecue joint right across the street?
Yeah, we have ours.
Right.
Where does our crew go after, late night
Irish American. So, and people are a little more jovial and a little more like, what do you do? And so the bars near the production companies were always a good source of intel. You could tell when somebody just got hired or somebody just got fired. Or,
Yeah. On one end of the bar, somebody's celebrating. On the other end,
yes,
someone's rethinking the bad decisions they've made in their life to
abs-
work in this field.
absolutely. And I don't know. I just still go back to the in real life, kind of look for work that way. I have been trying to use the cyberspace. I'm to the point now where I'm just writing, pornographic letters to see if they'll even write me back.
Going back to the quarter story, right? Like
Yeah.
trying to stand out. It's funny.
Yes.
I do also like part of why I'm doing this is to try to give young people advice
Mm.
and information. Hopefully, what we've experienced, I think it still does apply. Like we get a lot of emails and from resumes,
Oh, yeah.
and I'll say like when it is short and sweet and maybe something that is from the heart or something that stands out, it does work. I don't even really care so much that the resume is long and experienced, but if you can kind of get a sense of someone's personality, because for the most part, if you're hiring somebody, it's usually a lower level, entry level job and not something high level.
Right.
So with that approach, trying to kind of stand out, trying to be unique without being weird. It's a fine line. You don't want to be a weirdo and a creep, but you also
Right.
don't want to be just like every other guy.
Right. Yeah. So
So the show you're on now, what's your title on the show now?
I'm on the.
Well, like what's your title from a crew standpoint?
I'm a jib operator on a camera I would consider a central camera, the number 2. So I'm one of 5 guys on a live show.
And when you look at film and television as two things that kind of coexist next to each other, some things cross over, some things don't. So like being in that role on a TV show, can you talk a little bit about how that's different? Like, are you racking focus, pulling focus, adjusting apertures? Someone else doing that? Because like obviously on a film, you have a cinematographer,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have an assistant camera, you have a lighting
Dolly,
director.
I have
So
all that stuff.
in your world there, can you like kind of define like what you're doing on set?
Okay, so you asked earlier on about the Emmys and what their technical title was, and it's technical direction camera control. And so what does that mean? It means that the technical director, who's at like a bank of buttons inside the control room, is our team leader, kind of like our pilot.
Yeah, he's your quarterback.
And then the 4 or 5 guys or operators, 4 or 5 camera operators are the gunners. They're the ones shooting the bad guys out of the sky. The aperture, the color temperature, the ISO, the frame rate, all that stuff is done by it used to be done per camera, a person per camera. Now one person's supposed to do all the cameras, which technology allows them to, but it's got to be harrowing. Yes, as an editor, when you're watching your scenes change color, you're like, oh shit, that's got to be a little more blue or a little more red or whatever. She or he is doing that in a live scenario, like kind of like a DJ. Like if the rehearsal proves the lighting plot, you see what's going to happen. But what if some odd thing, bright thing, or they show up on all white? That's another great one. If your talent all of a sudden that you rehearsed with is wearing dark colors or gray, and then they come on the set looking like Mr. Clean.
Yeah, reflector.
Right.
Walking reflector.
So that gives your iris guy, your what we call video control guy, a lot of challenge. How is that? So you asked, it's like film set versus TV set. I don't know. I've been on some film sets that use 5 or 6 cameras a take, so they're literally shooting it like a TV show. Sitcoms isolate every camera and just shoot all day long and then edit it together the way they want to. Because tape is cheap, When they shot Happy Days or when they shot, All in the Family, those were film cameras. And those film cameras would run out of film sooner or later. So they had to change the film. There was a lot involved back then when the electric world took over. I think the two mediums kind of became almost the same. I mean, you could literally go out with 3 or 4 people and a high-end camera and make a movie. Whether it's written well or whether the storyline provides that 4 or 5 people can do it, that's up to you. Your boy Terrence Malick, does he work with 5 or 6 people and that's it?
He keeps it lean and mean, I think.
Lean and Mean, and Herzog, the documentary, and he says you can make a documentary by yourself if you want to, if you know how to do.
It's true. Less is more. I mean, that was one of the things I learned kinda, and I have another video about this to where I talk about learning from maybe a bad experience on set. I don't know if you've had this happen with you, but, like, I've worked on plenty of productions that were inefficient or wasteful, and instead of being like, "Oh, this place is a joke," or "It's not good," it can be inefficient, but you can still learn something from it, and I learned a lot of things watching overindulgence, having too many crew, too many people, too many things, wasteful money spending, that I then took with me as I started my own company as a smaller independent thing that, grew over time. You take those lessons, to learn from. But, one thing I definitely, yeah, I agree, like, lean and mean is always the way to go if you can.
If you can.
But at the same time, I'm also not a believer of a one-man band,
No.
because if you're gonna build a house, you can do it with one guy, but is it gonna be as, well done, if you have, an electrician, that's their trade, that's what they know what they're doing.
Right.
A carpenter, that's their trade, that's what they know what they're doing. If you dilute all of that, the house, I think, is not built as strong, and the film, I think, is no different. If you're doing your own sound, you're doing your own video. Starting a production company early on, that was one of my biggest frustrations. Clients would say, "Well, can't the cameraman do his own sound?" You can. Does it mean it's gonna equal a better product? No, because if you think about it, those are two major components of what you're putting together in this art form, sound and video. Do you want one person allocating 50% of their brain to these
Right.
two major things, or two dedicated people allocating 100% of their attention and brain power to those things? And I think that's a good example of, you do wanna keep things small. Do you need 7 audio people in your department if it's not this big giant, event that you're shooting? No. But do you need one guy doing everything? That's also a mistake too, I
No,
think, to avoid.
No, learn from the mistakes, learn from the heartaches, but also learn from the triumphs.
Alright, let's go back to some of the celebrities you've shot. Give me some names of, like, people of note that you've shot, some of the most iconic people you've shot, throughout the years.
James Brown, David Bowie, Elton John, Willie Nelson, Yo-Yo Ma. Those are all guys I've shot, but they're all completely different performers.
Yeah, of course.
Were all of those good experiences. That's why I remembered them. Now, some of the ones that weren't so great, it wasn't their music that was bad. It was just the situation I was put in as a group. Like, again, a lot of these times you're called up the day before. Hey, are you available tomorrow? Why? Tori Amos is going to do a special 3-song concert for, Ladies' Day or something, Ovarian Cancer Day. And it's going to be at, the Hard Rock. And we're going to set up today. And can you be there tomorrow? Yeah, sure. Who's directing is usually my first question. Who's going to be my boss?
Who's in charge of?
Yeah. And then when they tell you who that is, either you know them or you don't, and you agree to it or you don't. So in this case, I knew who it was. But I'd had some experiences with Herb in the past, being kind of not the greatest communicator, and then not the greatest acceptor of the final output. So when you do a live performance, and the band is doing it once, they're not going to do another
Yeah,
take.
you don't get a take 2.
Right. And if you aren't as happy with it as you can be, you don't start throwing your camera people under the bus. But in this,
That's the director. When it goes well, you take full credit. When it goes wrong, you start passing the blame.
so in this particular case, it was all white set, cyclorama, Infinity Psych, no seams, white piano. Tori's in a white suit, pantsuit, I think. Bench is white. Everything's white. And as cameramen, we're always told to show up to the set with show black. Wear show black. Well, this production coordinator didn't know that, or didn't have the foresight to tell everybody, this isn't a show black set. Why don't you wear all white?
Yeah. Show black meaning, obviously, wear all black clothes.
So you blend into the
you fade
shadows.
into the darkness.
Yeah,
Not a distraction for talent.
No distraction for talent. So we're being assigned positions for this complement. You're going to have a front of house. You're going to have somebody left. You have somebody right. And then they had a handheld that they wanted me to do. And they said, yeah, we want the handheld to go around behind the piano and, get a reverse angle of.
I know where this is
I'm
going.
6 feet tall, 7 feet 9 yards of man dressed in black. And so the punchline was that when we were assigning cameras, my friend, who I thought was my friend, says, "Oh, Mike's great at handheld. Why don't you have Mike do it?"
Setting you up for failure.
So yeah, I was just the goat.
So you're just this
I was the
big,
goat. I was like, "Get
tall,
out of there! You're in the shot."
black shadow that's moving through the
And
whole thing.
yeah, and then after the show, he felt so bad. Let's go out. Let's go out and get some beers. You took a beating out there. And then we go out for beers,
but
and
the
then we buy a
problem
couple of
was
beers,
what?
and then he just disappears on me, and I'm buying him beers.
Stiffs you on the bill.
Yeah.
But the problem is that you wear all black, as is an industry standard. You're shooting this all white set, and so what? When you go out there, the director or
was freaking out. Well, like, what is he? I can see you in every shot. What do you? I'm like, yeah, right. Well, I could go down the street and shoot from there. Anyway,
I laugh. You have to laugh, right? When you have these moments on set that are disaster. I've been a part of so many dumpster fire shoots. It's just like that saying, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And when you're in the moment of them, it stresses you out. I don't know how you've been able to retain your hair and good looks at your age, because I am falling apart maybe I've just had more bad shoots than you, but this is why I look like this, because the amount of stress that has been put on my body of dealing with, and looking back, people's like screaming about dumb shit. It's the dumbest shit. COVID really kind of put things in perspective for me. Prior to COVID, I used to think this was something important and something substantial and something that contributed to the world. Post COVID, and I'm not even like a COVID, person, per se.
I know.
But what I'm saying is that removal of the world shutting down and me being able to finally actually spend a little bit of time at home and in nature made me just realize all of this stuff you're chasing is just bullshit, and this is not important. So when you look back at how stressed people get, I've screwed up shoots, messed up sets, almost missed live deadlines of major shows. Yeah, it's bad, but in the scheme of things, none of this matters.
The phrase that we use, or I've used, and I'm sure it was borrowed from somebody else, but Regis Philbin said to me once, and I like the man for what he was. And he said, "Mike, it's never as good as you think, and it's never as bad as you think. See you tomorrow."
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. It's like,
yeah, shit happens.
Right.
It's funny you say that. You think of people you've worked with, especially people of note, and the things they've said to you. I didn't work with him. We hired him, but we worked with a guy who was like an Academy Award winning cinematographer, DP, and we're friendly. We don't speak that much anymore, but there was a period of time we were talking just through like mutual friend. We had connected. And I just remember he always used to say like, "This is all bullshit," even at the highest level. And that was what his catchphrase was. It's all bullshit. And at the time I was a little younger, so I was still optimistic. But looking back now, I'm like, he's 100% right. This is just a bunch of bullshit. I mean, it's an illusion. It's fake. We're creating a fakery. And we can get into the whole like entertainment versus art, which I won't, but so much of this is not important. So I would love to hear from you, some of the people you've worked with, and like, who were you impressed by seeing the behind the scenes, seeing like their work ethic, like who impressed you as a host?
Well, going back to the Emmy machine, I had to interview with the host.
Talking about Rosie.
Yeah, and she had very stratospherically rose to the public consciousness at that particular moment in this world. She was in a baseball period film with Madonna that I also acted in, believe it or not, and this is where the story's going to go. She was red hot on the MTV comedy circuit. I think she was hosting some kind of, night videos thing. And so she was an up-and-coming female comic.
That's right. Yeah, I remember Rosie as a
comic.
What she had that show, was it called like, it was like not Laugh-In, but it was, there was that show she used to host before she hosted her daytime talk show.
Yeah, so
she hosted that comedy hour.
Make no mistake, they were grooming, the machine was looking for a female regular girl comic. Somebody who wasn't pretty, somebody who had a funny accent, somebody who wasn't afraid to talk about difficult things, right? So they they nailed her for this talk show, and probably it was one of the biggest known secrets in showbiz at the time that she was gay. But that isn't going to help sell soap on NBC in 1996 to say, yes, and welcome to our brand new show with a gay comedian actor. We're not going to label her that. Let her come out on her own time. So I get the call for the show. The director wanted me on this show, and he says, but you have to interview with Rosie first. Okay, that's a little odd. Sure. I'll tell her a story. What are you going to tell her? I'll tell her a story. What are you going to tell her? I worked with her on League of Their Own, and I got basically bitch slapped by her. How are you going to tell her that? I'm going to tell her the story. Okay, Rosie, how are you? So, Bob McKinnon here says you're a good cameraman. Why should I hire you? I said, well, because you and I already have had words. She goes, really? Where? Help refresh my memory. I said, well, at Berwyn, Illinois, we shot for about a week for one particular scene, the Roadhouse scene in that little film you were in, League of Their Own.
What did you do in A League of Their Own?
I was an extra. Background extra. So they needed a lot of men for the Roadhouse scene because the Roadhouse is filled with partying Yahoo hillbillies.
Yeah, I remember the scene.
And yeah, it evolves into some choreography. Madonna does some swing dancing with the Lenny Squiggy guy, and the whole thing it's a lot of work. And it's hot, and we're all dressed, and it's indoors in this dark bar in Berwyn. And so, call for break at lunch. The extras get to go second or whatever. I've made a buddy. We're out there in line. I'm like, yeah, this fucking show. I mean, I'm out here in a cowboy hat and bib overalls for $75 a day. This is ridiculous. He's like, yeah, but it's $75 a day, and you never know. You know, there's a lot of stars on this. I'm like, stars? I haven't seen any. Who's on this movie? He said, oh, Tom Hanks. I said, Tom Hanks? Last good thing he did was Bosom Buddies. I care less about Tom Hanks. And he said, well, you know, Madonna's on it. I'm like, I don't listen to Madonna. Look at me. You know, the guy from Saturday Night Live. Last time I watched Saturday Night Live was 10.
Right?
Lovitz.
Yeah.
I go 10 years ago. Who else? And he finally comes up. You know, he lists this long list of people. Laura Petty, blah blah blah. Gina Davis. I'm like, I don't know any of these people. I don't care. I'm out here eating beans and franks for $75 a day. Can you move it along? He goes, oh, have you heard of this new comic, Rosie O'Donnell? I said, really? I haven't heard of her. Who the hell's that? She was standing right behind him, listening to all his BS with us. And she goes, hey, you, cowboy, turn around. I'm like, looking at this little fat, chubby baseball player. And she's got the little red hat on. I'm Rosie O'Donnell. Don't you forget it. You got me. She's poking me in the chest, you know, with her two fingers. I'm like, okay, easy. I don't want to get fired here.
Yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah. I'm going to lose my
So I told her that story, and she looks at me and she goes, you know, I can remember a lot of things, but that sure sounds like me, so I'm going to hire you.
Right. That's interesting. And that's a great story. And it's what I love about that story is I have always been a big believer in like being honest and truthful, and like you're just exposing yourself there. You're just kind of going, hey, you know what? We already had this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, you know, you want to deal with me again? It's
the irony is I'm on the 30th floor of Rockefeller Center, and you're in a corner office, not, you know, on a fold-out 8x10 table eating beans and franks.
Yeah, out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, you never know. That's the thing too, right? I'm sure we both have learned this. You just never know who you're talking to. One day this might be your PA, and it might be your boss. One day it might be your coworker. You just never know how you cross paths again. It's a small industry.
I'm a big fan of being nice to the PAs and nice to the young interns, because I always use this joke with them. I'm like, one day you're going to be my boss, so don't you forget how nice I am to you now.
Yeah, I think it's a good approach. Talking about all the TV shows you've worked on, you know, everyone says that like for years I've heard television's dying, and I kind of have always deflected that of like, no way, it's never going away. It's never going away. I'll be honest with you. Only of late have I really started to maybe worry and think there might be something to this with COVID, with the phone, with AI,
YouTube.
YouTube, our industry has changed drastically over the years, and I'm sure you've seen changes throughout your career. Can you talk about some of those changes that you've seen and the changes that have happened and how you've had to maybe pivot working in this field? And then do you think our industry is really kind of on death's door when I talk about television in the traditional sense that we know it? Tune in, you watch something, there's a show with commercials and advertisers. Is that going away?
Well, I don't have all my trusty, dusty stats in front of me, but I'm constantly being reminded about how much broadcast television is losing its percentage on a monthly. Like every month, it seems to be a little bit worse. Now, what it doesn't lose viewers on and never will lose viewers on is live events, sports, speeches, award shows, anything that cannot be, uh, you know, it can't be found anywhere else. Now they figured out a way to take your live events and put them on these things. So now you're just trying to kill it even more because you're trying to broaden your audience. Yeah, let's make NFL available streaming. Well, okay, you get a lot more money that way, but the traditional, like you said, let's come over to my place at 1 o'clock and we'll watch the game. Do you have the red line, a red zone? Well, no, I don't have red zone. Well, then I'm not going to watch it because I want to watch 4 games at once.
Yeah, how we watch entertainment and film and media has changed a
But
lot.
again, I just don't know if like the Live Aid event was such a big deal when I was younger. The concert, the Central Park shows, um, World Series. My God, did you watch the World Series this year?
Parts of it, yes.
I'm guilty. I waited until the next day to watch the highlights.
Yeah, it's very common now. No one has time. Everyone's rushed. Everyone's broke, but then seems to have no time.
But that last game was worth checking out. It was worth it. So what am I saying? Where's broadcast TV going? It's trying to change. It's, to your point, featuring TikTokers and influencers and people that show you 19 different ways to grow a banana, or what to do with the banana peel when you're done with it.
And I'm sure you've seen changes throughout your career. You obviously go film, digital. I remember HD comes out, right? Obviously, these things have happened in the past. A little bit of what's going on now is kind of on a different level. But I'm sure as those changes have happened, you've probably had to make pivots in your own career, right?
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like times you've had to pivot to maybe adjust to the times?
Unless I was above the line watching everybody's salaries and budget and time constraints, I don't care how the sausage gets made anymore. Just call me. But now it's gotten to the point where the just call me is so unsatisfying. I'd rather spend a day not getting paid doing something that's more personal and exciting to me than showing up for game 5 of the World Series and shooting a batter all day from one position. It just doesn't do it for me anymore. To some, it's how they're going to die with their boots on doing that shit. I'm like, I look at some of these guys today, my age, and they look like shit. I'm like, it's because you guys work in the mornings. I was guilty of it for a while. I'd work in the mornings and then catch a job till like 6 or 7 at night. But what football, baseball, basketball, hockey game ends at 7 at night? They start at 7 at night. So now you're working till 10 or 11 or midnight. Double day, right? And they're coming to their end of their thing too. Like most of my contemporaries are either figuring out how to get out, trying to decide how to hand off whatever they know to somebody they know and like their son or their daughter. I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm working with a lot of these kids that I watched from age 5. Now they're 30 years old and they're all like working.
Yeah, passing it off onto your kids. I think that's a natural thing, almost to kind of
it's common.
Extend your own career vicariously through your kids. It's a weird thing, and I am experiencing some of that myself. Starting out, it was all about the creative. I didn't care about money. I just wanted to make good content and things I cared about. And somewhere in the middle of my career, it became about, I want to make money. And so you lose the artistic drive for the commercial drive. And then now, as things have changed and I've gotten older and I'm tired of shooting and traveling across the country on productions and late nights in the
Across the
edits.
world. You went to China, for fuck's sake.
That's a whole other episode. But I agree with you in that now what drives me is not money, but the creative. If I like something, I will do it and I will work with somebody budgetarily in most situations, as long as it's a fair exchange. I would rather work on something that I've creatively invested and care in than something that I'm just phoning it in. Not that I've ever phoned it in, but something that I'm doing with the drive of money behind it. It's a weird thing to navigate in this field, right? I mean, and it makes me ask my next question to you. Would you say you're doing what you set out to do? Like your original goal? I think so many of us started going, I want to be a director, but there's only few and far between director jobs. And at some point you kind of go, well, again, working as a camera operator, working as an editor is close to touching that sun that you were kind of after.
Mhm.
Are you doing what you wanted to do? And talk a little bit about that. If you were to give somebody like advice, kind of working in this field, like do you have to have realistic expectations that you might have to pivot?
I had a dream of living on another planet in a biodome with all kinds of animals and water slides. And have you ever seen that website where when children draw something like the car, and then what if that car was built like children drew it?
Yeah, it comes to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was your dream to
Was
live
it
on
like
Mars.
to live in a big habit trail on Mars.
So you're falling a bit short of that dream.
But in many ways, I am in a habit trail living on Mars. Let me explain. The the dome that I'm in is the studio. The audience and the viewers are the fans at rollerball. They're the drive, the applause. They're the laughter. They're the uh, astonishment. So they were in the dream, and of course, a nice lighting plot. Some spotlights, some backlights, some key lights, some front lights, some specials, maybe some neon here and there. That was the dream. So all these things that I dreamt about as a kid have kind of showed up on a daily. Like, you want the floor to light up and look like an ocean? Well, we can do that now. I hate that floor. I think I'm getting radiation from that fucking floor. And there's a seam every 12 inches, so I can't really dolly on that floor. That's a whole nother story. Give me a steady cam now, because I can't roll on this fucking plastic floor you guys built because you want it to change colors. You want to put a fake rug there. Flick of a note. You want to put a shark swimming on the floor.
I love that answer to that question because, and if I were to break it down and try to relate to it, it's true. I think when you're an artist and you want to work as an artist, you basically want to get paid to like live in a fantasy, like to not have a real job,
Right.
to not have a boss, to not have to like ask for a day off. And so, even though when you work on shows like this, there's obviously still corporate structures and things like that. But for the most part, when you are afforded the opportunity to work as an artist and get paid for this, it does kind of feel like a fantasy of sorts. Maybe not the exact one that you painted or thought of, but you're still living in that biodome of like like when other people, like when my friends who work like in the automotive industry or in pharmaceuticals talk to me about their job and then ask me about mine sounds like I live in a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the most unusual, unpredictable, unstable. Like when you tell people what goes on, they don't believe that it's real. And it drives me nuts and it's stressful. But at the same time, I cannot picture doing anything else. I can't picture working a regular job and having a regular life.
I mean, the power that you have too, when it becomes broadcast, in my case, live every day at 9 a.m. on most markets and 10 a.m. in the Midwest. But I'll know if I made a mistake, or if I hit the zoom too hard, or if I was not on a frame right away and they took me. They're going to see that. The world sees that. So you try and be as perfect as you can, but then knowing that you could put your own signature on it if you're like, I mean, if you want to send a signal to your spies in Russia, 2 zooms means it's good. 1 zoom, don't launch.
Talk about pursuing film and television as a passion and as a profession. Are they two different things?
Depends on how high up on the food chain you are, and again, how much you really care. I mean, some of the happiest people that last the longest are the ones that have 0 passion, almost no creativity, and they just either they were born into it or they planned on uh, building special effect props for, they did one great prop when in the 70s, and now that's what they do. They make fake spaceships that float around on, you know, you know. I love scale models, by the way. So my passion would have been to work at Industrial Light and Magic and build the Death Star, but that's a whole nother thing. I still do a lot of small scale modeling, to be honest with you. And then I'm filming it. I'm putting it on, lit backdrops with smoke and, atmosphere and
But you're doing that obviously not for money, not for jobs.
passion.
It's just like you
Passion.
enjoy it. Just like someone would paint. Just requires
It's getting to that
a
point.
lot more time and money.
To love or to hate this profession, it's a daily struggle. Like getting up in the morning and showing up at ungodly hours or showing up at night and working through the night. That's what I would hate. I don't miss if it was gone tomorrow, that I would not miss because that's the worst. Going against your body clock. But what I love about it is the end result. At the end of the day, kind of like a live concert or a sporting event. There'll be certain moments in the game where we look like we're winning or losing. Like the defeat is coming or the triumphant slam dunk is coming. Don't ever say this looks great, we're almost done. Don't say that.
Those are jinxing words.
Shooting the clown is what we call it. Don't shoot the clown. Oh my God, don't say things are going good because inevitably something will happen but the end result looks great and everyone's happy. They walk out, either paying the company or continuing the project so there'll be more payments. I don't know. I mean, I haven't helmed enough stuff where there was a lot at stake. The things I like to be in charge of are my own projects, my own yes or no's, my own, well, there's no deadline. We'll finish it tomorrow. Those are the things I love to do.
Yeah, when you're working on your own thing and no one is noting you or changing you, that is the best feeling. It's kind of a conundrum in our field where, like, I know for me, when I only have one client who has really given me both things that I want as a filmmaker: financing and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Every other client does not. They give you financing with almost no freedom, where they want you to just be a button pushing monkey, and they want to drive the boat, but they also
Or they've transverse where they give you no money, but say do whatever you want.
Yes, yeah, it's tough to get both.
But the project you speak of is the China project, right?
Yeah, the client that I have who's overseas is the best approach from a financing company that I've ever seen working in film and television, where they look at it as, we want to build a house, we have money for it. You're the house builder. We give you the money, you build the house. They don't really tell you how to design it,
Very
how to
rare.
architect it. They don't overly note it. They give you very little input, and they let you just do what you do.
Well, you had a great subject too. I mean, you had such a broad meta physical world you got to live in with that.
Yeah, that's the other. I mean, that's the other blessing I get from that company is that creatively, and this is kind of goes for a lot of foreign companies. It's the foreign companies that bring me work that allow me to work in a creative space as a topic, as a subject matter. Their plot lines of narrative projects, of documentaries, of even reality shows are more rooted in art. And then here in the United States, it's just a dumpster fire. It's whatever is going to get clicks and shares Prior to this, it was, eyes on the screen. That's why Jerry Springer was such a huge show for such a long time.
And the other one, Maury.
Working on all the shows you've worked on, obviously, again, you're around a lot of celebrities. There must have been moments where maybe it was yourself or you witnessed a crew member make like a fatal or drastic mistake with like pitching an idea or trying to get somebody's number. What's like a big fail you witnessed firsthand or maybe was even a part of yourself while working in the field?
Someone was honestly asked by the celebrity whom they went to school even together. Hey, Matt, I haven't seen you in a while. I know, Mike. Look at your career. Look at what you're doing. Yeah, it's just, you never know when these careers could fail. I'm getting lucky. But what else you been up to? Well, I'm producing this segment for you for the talk show. Really, Matt? It's good to have a friend by my side. What do you want to talk about? Well, I want to talk about your new movie. Okay, that's swell. I really don't want to talk about the new movie. If I have to, I will. I'll talk about it. What have you been up to other than this? Oh, I wrote a movie. Really, Matt? Do you have a script? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have the script in my office. Why don't you give me the script? I'll read it when I leave the studio. Okay. Before Matt got back to his office, before Tom Hanks got onto the set, Matt was fired.
You actually saw this happen.
That went down, and I was like, "That is not right." I mean, the guy was
this was with a celebrity?
Well, it was Tom Hanks.
It was actually Tom Hanks
and a producer that went to school with him, and they were
So they were like
they were reminiscing about the old days and just finding the irony of that you're a movie star.
Oh my God!
But look at
Whatever
you.
happened
But
to the
look
guy?
at you. I think he failed upwards.
But I'm saying, did he was fired off the show?
Yeah, where the hell did he go? He went. I think when we got fired off of that show, he went over to like, I don't know. Joan Rivers had a show then. I don't know. It was one of those, it was a kind of a rosy copycat show, and I can't remember what it was. Vicki Lawrence. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can't remember.
Ricky Lake?
Ricky Lake. Well, Ricky Lake I worked on for 9 years. It wasn't a Ricky story. That was from NBC. I think Jane Pauley was the girl across the hall. Anyway.
But the thing is,
it's the same thing, hey, dude, I'd love to give you a...
Now, who fired him?
Probably the EP, probably.
Now, he heard all this go down, or do you think Tom Hanks ratted him out?
No, I think it was didn't tell Tom Hanks till he was coming on the show the next time, and he was asking for his friend.
Jesus.
He left.
That's an interesting story.
But other things, simple stuff
so
like...
Tom Hanks didn't even know that there was a repercussion. Someone observed this.
Yes, so it was one of those things like, we told you not to do that kind of stuff. And he's like, well, he asked for my script. We did go to school together. I don't care. Blah, blah, blah.
It's amazing. Everyone, I will say this. It's an industry that's not easy to get into. It's an industry that's not easy to work in.
It's easy to get out of by one fatal.
It is easy to get out of by making a mistake.
That's what I mean, yeah.
But also... The other thing, I don't know if you've experienced this now as someone who's been doing this a long time. Nobody stays here. Everybody leaves. It's almost like Survivor, I feel like every colleague I have now who's in my age range, which is like 45 to 50.
They've moved on.
They've left. I mean, people that not out of like, failure or not out of not having opportunity, but just going like burnout. It's funny. Burnout's a real thing. I did not think it was because I have a lot of energy and I've been going my whole life. Recently, I'm like, oh, this is burnout.
I blame it all on the internet. I blame it all on fast service and the ability to be the smartest person in the room. New York, LA, maybe to some degree, of course, because of its film industry, but New York was the center of publishing, magazines, photography, art, film, queer world, crazy world, cannibalism, swingers, all that shit that you could get on the internet now, you could only get if you came to New York. And the only way you could find it in New York is to get the Village Voice.
Oh, I remember that.
So the Village Voice,
gone, though, right?
So the Village Voice had its, amateur porn, which was the personals. It had places to live and how to be a hustler and shack up. Those were the real estate ads. But I mean, now the internet's the Wild West with all that. And you could be a New York kind of thrill seeker in, Tuscaloosa, Mississippi. You used to have to come to New York literally to find the darkness. And the darkness is everywhere now. So New York's lost its edge. And I think that's what's helped a lot of my generation kind of go, well, the good old days, if you wanted to have a three-way trick, you'd go to the,
Back in my day.
meat packing district, not a different thing, right?
Yes.
Now
That's a good point.
You go to the meat packing district, you better have $100 for the cover charge. It's
For a cup of coffee.
just to, yeah. And it's just, I just do think that nuances that like London had and Paris had and Berlin possibly, I've never been. Maybe Tokyo is keeping its identity and its mysteriousness because it's got all those, crazy dark subcultures and those alleys.
Tell me about a time in your career where you maybe had some self-doubt, and how did you overcome that?
And you get to be my age sometimes, and I hate to keep saying that, but you've done almost everything you wanted to do to get everybody backing you up, and now you just feel like backing other people up because the clock's going the other direction. It's not like that endless clock you have when you're in your 30s. Or even when you hit 40, you're like, I'm still not 50 yet. Still got a lot of stuff I can do. And heck, I got to watch, my family grow or whatever you're doing there. If you're not growing a family, you're still taking care of your family, your
dog,
your brother, your mom, your dog, your dad, who knows? And it's happened to me recently where I've seen a couple family members and friends just kind of whittle their life down to a couple suitcases and say, well, yeah, I'm going to have a nurse come in twice a week to cook for me because I can't be trusted around hot pots and pans. And that's sobering to think and to see in others and going, well, I might be 10, 20 years away from that right now. 10, 15 years away from something like that, maybe a hip problem. Haven't had those yet. How many times have I heard people say in my business, my legs are giving out?
Yeah, from years of standing, shooting.
It
your
shoulders,
body.
your shoulders, you're carrying things.
I have like a missing disc in my neck now from editing. From sitting here and looking up, I can't even do it. It hurts so bad. But from sitting at a table and looking up in the monitor,
believe it,
and working for so many hours in an edit room,
totally
it can be a very unhealthy environment for a number of reasons. Because you're expected to work endless hours, to give your blood, sweat, and tears, give your entire everything.
I'm not complaining. There's worse places to work and environments to be breathing in noxious odors.
Craziest thing you've seen while taping a live show?
Yeah, we could do a few lightning rounds here. Craziest thing. The day Regis's little leprechaun fell out of his pants. Oh, once you saw it, you just can't unsee it. Live TV, yoga, Daddy and Me is the name of the segment. Daddy and Me.
Does this live on the internet somewhere, do you think?
No, I'm telling you this before. We all had flip phones and nobody knew how to use them. There was no cameras on those things. You see a picture from...
But I mean, does the episode of the show, did it air or was it live?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's funny you said that because I do actually remember watching MTV in the late 90s.
Uh-huh.
I think it was called Freak Show. There was
it
was some late night show.
Yeah.
And I remember there being a circus performer who performed and then ripped his pants and then sat down for an interview, and his meat and potatoes were hanging all out on the chair. And I remember watching it as a kid going, holy shit, does anyone see that? No, Jesus. And then if we could talk also, I mean, not that it was live TV, but the end of Teen Wolf. Do we know about the end of Teen Wolf?
Forget about that.
The end of Teen Wolf ends with
Jason Bateman?
No, not Jason Bateman. That's Teen Wolf too.
Excuse me.
Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox.
Okay.
The original. I used to work in a video store, and you spent a lot of
God bless
time
you. Yeah.
going through the cult rumors of movies and pausing on VHS back then what you had heard through the grapevine of things that went down. But end of Teen Wolf was a basketball game.
Oh, right.
And there's a pan across all the extras who are going, yay, in celebration. And there's one guy who is fully exposed in the shot, and it made it into the film.
Oh, wow.
I just remember working in a video store, finding it and going like, holy shit, there it is. And write
that one down, kids. That's a good one.
You have to assume the editor knew because, sometimes things slip by in the edit, but for the most part, like I've worked in some Fight Club level things in my day on shows where I'm like, let's see if this gets in. And it's like, oh yeah, it's never been caught. Like, I've slipped in a few inappropriate still frames, you might say, on some fairly popular shows. Have you ever totally fucked up or ruined a shoot?
So I worked on this music show in the late 90s, live from 11 to midnight in Manhattan. And the circuit was, if you were a band and you were promoting yourself in New York, you would, if you were lucky enough, you would do Letterman and or his buddy Conan. So depending on where your music fit, you were taping at 5 o'clock in the afternoon at one of those talk shows. Then you would hustle off right after that and go over to Jon Stewart's stage, which was called Night Moves. He had a show called Night Moves before Comedy Central, before he was actually a comedian and a host of a music show, Night Moves. And then when they were done there around 8:30 or 9, they'd come over to our set, which was on 26th and 5th. So all this stuff's kind of like strike distance, within a few minutes of each other. And it would be the third time they'd play their hit song and talk about how great their record was. And this night we had Chris Isaak, who at the time had this song called Wicked Game or something.
Yeah, of course. It was
big
huge.
Song,
That was what, late 90s? That was on
big
repeat
song.
on VH1.
Very sexy man,
MTV,
very
all
handsome,
over.
very, very kind of movie star-ish. Everyone couldn't wait to interview him and couldn't wait to have him there. And
A good karaoke go-to, by the way,
Yeah.
if you ever need one.
so my job on the show was the color bumper shots at the end of every segment where they'd go, coming up next, we're going to talk more with Matt and his band. And then they would dissolve to say, a close-up of the album cover or something with the band in the background. And so I would build these little vignettes on the fly with props that were, the set kind of had kind of like this place. It felt like a house. There were things around, there were books and things you could kind of craft a quick bumper with, And so I saw his guitar case on the ground. Open up the guitar case and I put the CD, right? It's a velvet lined guitar case, put the CD in there. They're in the kind of depth of field background. And coming up next, we're going to talk more with Chris Isaak. And they slowly dissolved in my shot. And he looks up at the monitor and it's like he saw a car crash. He's like, what the fuck is that? And we fade to black, roll the commercials. He comes storming over. He goes, what the fuck was on your mind there, dude? You opened up my personal guitar case and thought that was okay? What? I'm like, sorry, man. Yeah, you're really sorry. You're a real asshole. He's really
For opening up his guitar
I could
case?
have had something very personal in there, and I'm thinking to myself, it
Yo.
was dildos or drugs. I don't think what would you be embarrassed? What would be in there? I did. So, so that was the major fuck up. And then, as fate would have it, okay, that's a wrap, everybody. 12 noon, go home. Good show, everybody. We all scurry to the elevators, and I had to share an elevator with him and his people.
Oh,
So
boy.
I get on the elevator, and he goes, hey, man, I'm really sorry I blew up at you like that. I was really freaked out, and it's been a long day. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. You get it, right? I said, it's all right, man. To let it go. So it was a fuck up, but with a
good ending.
A good
You know
ending.
what? See, I went from hating him in your story to now liking him because this is a really difficult job, right? In any capacity, from a PA to a director to a celebrity to an artist, it sucks and it's difficult. And you blow up. I have called clients of mine cunts to their face.
Ooh. Hope
And-
you were in Britain.
No, I wasn't. That's a whole.
They use that word like we use dick here. Like, he's a dick.
Yeah, he's a cunt.
Oh my God.
So I
get a dish thrown at me if I say that at the house.
I hard enunciated it to the client's face,
Uh-huh.
which I eventually, I think I apologized. I mean, it was kind of deserving because she was trying to rip me off. And I guarantee she's done it to other people. And I guarantee the reason why she keeps doing it is because no one has called her out on it.
Right.
And I was going to make it my thing that I was going to call her out really directly. But with anything, you fuck up, you apologize, you move on. And I think there's a level of respect. Like I feel you probably in the same way, like went from going, fuck Chris Isaak to you know what? All right. That's kind of cool that he actually said that.
It's given me a cocktail story for 35 years. So
I almost, one time I shot a movie with Joan Collins, who I don't think gets enough respect as an actress. And I remember, not that this was a fuck up, but this was almost like oh my God, I can't believe I almost did that. We were shooting a movie with her, and she was kind of playing an extension of herself. A little bit of a diva, of a Hollywood royalty. And I remember, and I was very young. Same like you had told about having to audition or interview with Rosie to get that job. I had to interview with Joan for this. She
Makes
at
sense.
first was like, he's too young. I'm not going to work with someone that young. He's not going to get this or know me. The writer, who's a friend of mine, who I'm going to interview on our podcast here, stood up for me and was like, just meet with him. So I met with her. We had a good meeting, and then I ended up getting the job. But I remember in one scene, and it happened more than once, but there's one scene specifically where, you rehearse and something's supposed to happen. And I wanted to like torpedo her in the scene where I sent an extra. I didn't want to tell her because I wanted
the initial reaction. I
wanted a real reaction.
Got it.
She was like supposed to be this Hollywood diva, and she was supposed to be in the middle of something. And I sent an extra to interrupt her. And, because I wanted her
to film it.
react.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I sent the girl in, and she like snapped at her. And I was like, oh my God. And I almost went into, while we're rolling, I almost went, no, like I sent her in. And then I realized she's acting. She's acting and doing exactly what I wanted. She's reacting.
Wow.
And gave me that as a director. And I was like, holy shit, I almost fucked up her performance and fucked up all of the good that I did. Because I thought she got mad at me, and I thought she got mad at the girl. And she was like about to rip her head off. But then I realized she's still in character and performing.
Maybe Chris Isaac and Colin should get together and do a bodice buster.
A duet. Fake it till you make it. Have you ever done it? And did you get caught? That's an industry term, right? You fake it till you make it. Or are you doing it and you're still doing it?
Pretty much.
That's how I feel too. Is that not everybody that you've worked with? No one, isn't it amazing how you're like, you have these idealistic thoughts of like big directors or big actors, and then you meet them or work with them, and they're like, they're more dysfunctional than you, and you're like, holy shit.
It is astounding, right? It is astounding. Same for writers. You read their books or whatever, and then you hear them try and articulate with what is clearly pre-described question and answer stuff, and they still sound like, how did you write that book?
Right. They're almost illiterate, and then you start to realize
illiterate.
they maybe didn't write the book. It gets a little disappointing. Like you say, you're not supposed to meet your heroes.
True.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for sitting down and talking
Marathon
with me.
Man. Woo!
You're a great interview and a wealth of knowledge. I think
so.
the young people just coming into the industry will find a lot of value in a lot of things you had to say. So thanks for giving us your advice.
Thank you for inviting me. And I apologize in advance for moving the mic, moving the shot. You young people out there, do as you're told, or else it'll look bad. How's it look now?
I think you're still in focus.
Better?
It's forgiven. All is forgiven.